How do you make this studio strobe and this speedlight talk the same language? I'm going to show you on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Of course, I'm David Bergman, as always, answering your photography questions. I'm sure you have photo questions. Go to AskDavidBergman.com. There's a form there. Submit any photo question you want, and I'll pick the best ones to answer right here on a future show. Today's question was submitted by Jerry W. on that very site, and he asked, I have 4 Canon Speedlights and want to use them with the Profoto B2 as my key light with the Profoto radio trigger. Is there a way to trigger the Speedlights with this setup? Jerry, thanks for asking that question. I have gotten a lot of questions over the years about flash triggers and using them with different systems and how to make it all work. We're really in kind of the wild, wild west now with flashes. There are so many brands and so many ways to do it. So obviously I can't go through every single combination, but I'm going to break it down as best I can. Now, back in the old days, it was a lot simpler because we really didn't have that many options, right? So you were if you worked in a studio, you were pretty much locked into one system, and that's what you used. Today, a lot of people probably maybe your first flash that you bought. By the way, I use the word flash and strobe interchangeably. Some people consider this big studio light to be a strobe and a speed light to be a flash. I use the words interchangeably. Strobe, flash doesn't really matter. But maybe the first one you bought was an off-brand, very inexpensive, and then over time you've added in some more professional level, higher level, better quality lights, and you want to make them work all together. That's not your case, Jerry. You're using good stuff, but I'm just saying in general, a lot of people are having this issue, and you want to use those old lights. Why not? So I'm going to break this down into sort of 3 different scenarios and how to handle them. The easiest way and the best way, if you can, is to stay in the same ecosystem. I'm a Canon explorer of light. I'm going to use Canon whenever possible. I love the system. It works really, really well. This is the 600EX RT Speedlight. And I have 8 of these, and I love them. They've actually changed the way I work because I can bring a whole bunch of these in a bag anywhere in the world in one rolling bag and have 8 lights all over the place. They're pretty powerful, but even today you get more power essentially out of these things because you can raise your ISO. Back in the day, not that long ago, we were shooting slide film. You were shooting 100, maybe 200. Now you can go 400, 800, 1600, and you're really getting a lot more power out of these essentially. So I would like to stay within the one system whenever possible. The reason is I can use this little sucker. This is the STE3RT transmitter. I love how that just rolls off the tongue, right? But basically, it's a radio transmittable flash without the flash part. It's just the transmitter. By the way, in the Canon system, if it has RT in the model number, then it has radio transmission capabilities. So this little sucker, I can put this on. This is my 5D Mark IV. I can go ahead and put this on here, and I have full control over all of my Canon Speedlights from the camera. This is great because if I have Speedlights all over the place on a set, maybe I have one up in the rafters in the roof, or one behind a wall, another under a couch. It doesn't matter if I need to make it brighter or darker. I can make that change from the camera directly. I don't have to have somebody go over to that flash or dig that flash out and make the change on the flash. So that's really nice. So because these are all Canon, they work easily together, and I never have any trouble. I can fire this thing remotely. I don't know if you're seeing it. You're probably not seeing it very well with the video frame rate, but trust me, the light is coming out of this Speedlight wirelessly. Very, very simple and very easy. I can put as many Speedlights as I need on that same system. Really nice. So that's the easiest way to go if you can stick with one brand, of course. Now, that's not what we're talking about today, though. A lot of people now have different brands. So when I want to step up to a bigger studio light, let's say I'm outdoors and I need more power than a Speedlight's going to give me, and I don't want to set up 8 Speedlights in a softbox, I'm going to use something like this. This is the ORLIT RoveLight 610. I love this system. I have 4 of these at home, and I really like these things. I get a lot of power out of it, but the main reason I use this, by the way, there are a lot of third-party brands now that do this. The main reason I like this one is because I can use it on the same radio channel. They've reverse engineered to be able to use the same radio frequency as the Canon Speedlights. So what I can do is I can turn this sucker on, and by the way, this light itself I can set it for Canon, Nikon, Sony, probably a few others, but they're making them now so you can change it and you can use it with different systems. So I've got this light on now. I'm going to turn the Speedlight off, so that's not going to fire. And now I'm using my Canon transmitter and this ORLIT RoveLight, and I can go ahead and fire away. And this thing is firing now using that same Canon radio frequency. If I turn on my Canon Speedlight, that will fire at the same time as well. I don't know if you're seeing that. But anyway, with my one transmitter, I can trigger strobes from different manufacturers. Again, I'm going to use the Speedlights whenever possible, but if I need more power, Canon does not make a big studio strobe like this, so I'm going to step up to something like this. Now, Jerry, you asked about your Profoto B2. The third situation is something like Profoto does not work on the Canon, Nikon, Sony frequencies, radio frequencies, so it's its own system, so you're not going to be able to use a setup like this. So how do you deal with that? Well, there's a few different ways. The first one is something we've been doing for decades, right? I have been a PocketWizard user for a very long time. I love these suckers. They are reliable as hell. I've got a few dozen of these at this point, different models over the years that I've picked up. And I use them primarily these days to remote trigger a camera. So at a concert, for example, I'll have a camera set up on stage, and I've fired a PocketWizard from across the other end of a stadium. At a Bon Jovi show, we'll be 120 yards from the stage, and I can transmit my remote camera using their long range mode, which is pretty insane. Flashes, I'm probably not going to be that far away from, but the PocketWizards are the gold standard. They are super reliable. They make a lot of different models. Now, the sort of standard models, the multi-maxes, the +3s, the +4s, this is the +3, this is +4, you can use those with your flash. They're what we call a dumb trigger, though. They don't send any TTL data or high-speed sync or any of that kind of stuff. They do have hypersync, which is a similar high-speed system, but it's really simple because all you do is you take your Speedlight. The +4 actually has a hot shoe on it. If you have a model that doesn't have one, you can use a cord to connect to the flash, and all you do is you put that on there. I'm going to switch this over to manual mode because I was in the radio mode. So let's go to manual. I've got it dialed down. Now this is on a PocketWizard. I've got a PocketWizard here, and I can just fire that whenever I want. All I have to do is put this on my camera, and it will fire this. And every one of my flashes, I just have to put a transceiver on so that I can trigger that whenever I want. That includes these big studio strobes. So as long as you have the right cord, you have to make sure you get the right cord for your system, including Profoto will work. You can go ahead and put a transceiver on there and trigger that with your camera. So that is really definitely a way to go. Now, PocketWizard does have some other models that will have some TTL functionality and things where you can control from the camera, because a system like this, the +3, +4, you have to make those changes, those exposure changes, the brightness changes, power changes, I should say, on the flash itself. So you have to actually get to the flash and do that. Again, now there are some other third parties that have sort of tried to replicate what PocketWizard's done. I'm still sticking with PocketWizard, but there are some other ones you can get that you put one on the camera and one on each flash, and that will trigger them. Now, the last way to do this when you've got things that don't talk to each other is the old school way. Back in the day, when you were working in a studio, let's say I had a Dynalite kit, and I had 3 or 4 different packs, and I could what I had to do was either they had them built in, or I had to buy a peanut slave to put on that power pack. And it looks something like this. This is a little peanut slave. And basically you can buy these and put these on flashes that don't already have them in them. Now, some of them already have a system like this built in. It's basically a dumb slave that when it sees a flash go off, it's going to trigger whatever it's attached to and make it go off at exactly the same time. So the Canons, for example, some Speedlights have an optical like that built in. Canons have an optical system built in, but only that works Canon to Canon. If you want a dumb, peanut optical type, it's actually not built into this Canon. So you have to buy something like this. These are a little hard to find for Canon. There's something about the voltage of the Canons that makes them a little more challenging. But if you get this particular one with the green base on it, you will be good to go. I'll put a link down below to where I get this one. They're very cheap. They're like 12 bucks. And you stick it right on your Canon, on the PC sync slot right there. And now you've turned this expensive Speedlight into a dumb flash. And basically, by just triggering this RoveLight, when I pop that sucker, both lights are going to go off. So they are both firing here at the same time, just because this light is putting out the flash, and then this slave is seeing it, and I can fire those away, right? So that's really the simplest way to go, Jerry. In your particular situation, if you want to, that's what I would do. You have the Profoto B2 and you want to use the Profoto transmitter, that's the way to do it. You have to turn your Speedlight into an optical, you have to have an optical slave on there so that it will see that Profoto light, because Profoto and Canon are never going to talk to each other directly. There is one other way to do it, Jerry, in your case, because you have, you're using Canon. If you have something like the STE3RT, or if your camera has a pop-up flash that has remote transmission capabilities, then you could use your Speedlight as sort of your master, right? It doesn't matter if it's your key light or your background light or whatever it is, but that would be the light that the camera is talking to directly, and you can control that. And then your Profoto B2 has a built-in optical slave already in it, and many studio lights do. So whatever studio lights you have, basically the one you want to radio with is the one that you're using the same system, and then the others need to be on an optical trigger of some type. So that's how I would do it in your case, Jerry, if you have that kind of a setup. So look, like I said at the beginning, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of combinations of lights. A lot of people have a lot of gear like this. I have tried to make it work. I try to stick with the one system whenever possible, but then I add other things in, and there are always ways to get it done. You just have to be a little resourceful. Thanks for sending in that question. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I wrong on this stuff? This is how I've done it for decades. It works really, really well. Well, not decades with the system, but you know what I mean. I've been making it work, and you can too. So comment below, like, subscribe. You're already on Adorama TV. I hope you're enjoying all of the free photo content here. And again, go to AskDavidBergman.com. Ask your own photo questions. I just might answer on a future show. Remember, I'm back here every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern with a new episode. I'll see you next week on Ask David Bergman.